My guest is Matty Johnson. He works for me for Fire Rescue. Matt, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Cool.
Go from there. So I'll do that intro, and then we'll start the discussion. I'll just hit these points. Testing. All righty. Well, welcome to the Perspectives on Leadership podcast, live from FDIC 2024. Thank you all for being here. This is a wonderful, wonderful event. A lot of people showing up, a lot of energy. First things first, I want to give credit where credit's due. So this studio is brought to you by Firehouse Subs and the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation. Enjoy more subs, save more lives. Find out more about restaurant ownership at www.firehousesubsfranchising.com. Thank you, guys. All right, so I'm very excited to be doing a live podcast of the Perspectives on Leadership podcast here at FDIC. It is Thursday. It is a little after noon. Everybody's at lunch break coming from classes and about to go to other classes happening this afternoon. So today, my guest is going to be Matty Johnson. He's a firefighter from Fort Lauderdale Fire Rescue, where I currently work. And Matt, go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Yes, my name is Matty Johnson, like he said, and I'm going to correct Chief right now, where he used to work.
We'll cover that in a second.
Don't want to get too far into that. I'll let him get to that. Yeah, it's a pleasure being here. It's been awesome. Really good couple days. Look forward to the next two and having some good discussion.
Absolutely, man. All right, so I brought Matty on because we've been talking for some time about a variety of topics. And what was interesting was a lot of those topics we've been discussing for months, if not the last couple of years, involve things like our culture, training, and all that jazz, but definitely the culture part. And what I found was interesting is, and we were all taking notes from the two keynotes on the first day. And that was David Rhodes and Scott Thompson, Chief Scott Thompson. And it was just very surreal that a lot of the things they mentioned were things that we had been discussing for a long time. So first of all, I want to just make sure I start with what the slogan is for FDIC for this conference: train, lead, repeat. And I'm glad that outside this booth, we were talking to Chance Craven from Honor Supply Company. And
Honor Supply Co.
And we were talking about that concept. And he was kind of reminding us that train, lead, repeat. When we talked about that cowboy culture and whatnot, that there's a certain consistency with what an individual, whether it's a cowboy or that culture, do, that consistency. That's part of what this culture is. What do you do consistently? The basics. Do you do them well consistently? Are you training consistently? Those kind of things. And this is going to spread off to other conversations. But some of the things that I wrote down from yesterday: loyal disobedience, revolutionaries, and my favorite, we need the institutions, but we need to infiltrate the institutions. The revolutionaries need to infiltrate the institutions. I thought that was very powerful. The whole conversation was powerful. And it was very interesting that both conversations, both those keynotes in the morning, involved that cowboy culture in some way, shape, or form, but yet they didn't talk to one another. They weren't like comparing notes beforehand. It just so happened that a lot of the same themes were covered, but just in a different way. That was really powerful.
It was really interesting how that kind of all worked out, especially not speaking beforehand. I think there's definitely a common misconception when you hear people use the term cowboy, especially in the fire service, thinking that you're just going to be outlandish and breaking all the rules and just doing your own thing and freelancing, which with what they were talking about, and especially with the slogan of the conference, it's almost the exact opposite. That train, lead, repeat, that discipline that a cowboy ensues every day, in and out of the day. And the sense of almost like a repetition of doing what you need to do in order to, finish your mission. And I feel like that speaks a lot to the modern day fire service in the sense that, and he gets more into this also with these new cultures that are coming up, like that are breaking into the system, so to speak, those new innovations and just really trying to tie everything together as far as that's concerned.
No, I'm glad you went there, man. And I'll be the first one to admit, in Fort Lauderdale, we have an aggressive firefighting culture. We really do. And we're proud of that firefighting culture. And when some of the groups that we have internally started using that slogan more and more again about that cowboy mentality, the cowboy culture, I didn't get it at first. At first, I'm like, yeah, it's not resonating with me. I'm not seeing what you're talking about because of those misconceptions, of the common optics of what that term could mean if you're not defining it. But then, as I kind of just watched the training and watched the recruits coming out of training and watched the training that was being done and listened to the conversations, you're right. It transcended the concept of the old cowboy mentality. It was more than that. And you mentioned a bunch of those things.
I think it has a lot to do with pride too. And taking pride in that slogan. And the cowboy way, like I said, doesn't necessarily mean going and doing a whole bunch of bad things, but really like, sticking to your own and taking care of your own. And I feel like the modern day American cowboy, that's exactly what it implies. So
I couldn't agree with you more, man. I would say that I enjoyed listening to David Rhodes' speech yesterday because having heard his opening keynote last year, that was the one we needed to hear right after Chief Halton's passing. That was one of the ones that everybody was watching him because he is not filling the shoes, but stepping in there with his own shoes. And the words he used were just very powerful. And there was a lot that we needed to hear, and he gave that to us. And what I found is he did it again. He was giving us the words that we needed to hear to get this week started with the right mentality, the mindset, and the remind that not only this is a refresh, but there's a lot to be taken, not just from the classes and the walking around the rooms and everything, but even the after parties and the after conversations and all that jazz. So I'm glad he did. He nailed it on the head.
Well, let's just talk about the way he came out. I mean, talking about starting a show off. It was like I was at a concert and the main act had come on, and all of a sudden he comes ripping in playing a guitar. You don't see that. The hilarity in that, and just the overall, like, we don't have to take this so seriously. We're going to have an awesome talk. We're going to get down to the nitty and gritty. But at the same time, I'm a fireman. It's that same kind of attitude that you're going to see around the firehouse kitchen table. That exact same, like, we could talk about some things, but we're going to have fun while we're doing it. And that's a chief's chief. That's a fireman's chief for the most part. And then walking out with the cowboy hat afterwards.
Yeah. He stole the show, man. I got nothing. He was in rock star status, man. I also liked that when the keynote transitioned over to Chief Scott Thompson, and I'm a note taker. I'm a reader. I got to tell you, man, I couldn't keep up with all the stuff that was being said. I was like writing, and I found myself going, no, I need to pay attention. I need to focus and listen to this. I need to be doing that. But I'm trying to record and write this down in my notes. And then I realized, wait a minute, it's going to be recorded anyway.
There were too many good talking points throughout the entire thing that when you wanted to take a note, another one was happening and you were missing it.
That's exactly what I felt.
Yeah.
Yes.
The catchphrases were just all there.
I like that he, and talking with him directly, there were some of the things that he said that I think that are just poignant statements about the fact that when the word aggressive comes up, it sometimes is a tough conversation. We talk about the word aggressive. And what does that mean? He was talking about, I love this, protect our people up until the time it takes seconds away from the citizens.
100%.
Man, that is some powerful, there's so much to break down right there that it would take a few hours, I think, to break down that topic, that really means. I love that he says outcomes are determined by seconds and not minutes. I was teaching yesterday, and I remember quoting something, and you were there. Thank you for attending my class. But thank you for the jabs and the information you launched out there. It's much appreciated. But the motto is the word we hear, like as goes the first line, so goes the fire. As goes the first line, so goes the fire. There's a implicit need to get that done quickly in the right way, professionally. And yes, seconds do count. So I'm glad he threw that out there. I love that he was talking about allowing a firefighter to be a firefighter. Let me do my job. And that it all ranks from top to the bottom. Let us do our jobs. You hired me because I'm a firefighter. You hired me because I'm a paramedic. You hired me because I'm a lieutenant, captain, chief officer. I'm here for a reason. Let me do my job. And there's a lot of powerful words there.
One thing, and I'm probably going to break up your timeline here, was something that I never thought about that he brought up when he brought up the defunding of the police. And then saying, like the way that our culture is moving and stuff like that, when let's say the public sees a lax in judgment because we are sitting too far to that safety code, that there's a chance that that's going to end up happening to us. And that's a point that I had never thought about before. And it was mind blowing to me to even think that maybe the entirety of public service is going to be a jeopardy soon if we're not toeing to the line and doing our job and putting safety first and not letting those seconds count.
I'm glad you said that, because that's why we come to a place like this, is for those profound, those poignant, those moments of pause, stops, those conversations that make you go, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. That's exactly what I found multiple times through that conversation.
And Chief Rhodes, pointing out the vulnerability of the fire service in general, and not just saying that, like puffing our chests out and saying we're firemen, but saying that we also make mistakes. And out of those mistakes, there needs to be change. Bringing up the Polk County issue and having to sit there and listen to that 911 call. It's horrible. It's one of the hardest things I've had to listen to in my entire life. in the midst of this amazing speech, bringing it back down and letting us know that we still have things to work on, I think was, I mean, it really hit home.
I, I agree. And I like that when we're talking about training, one thing, and this will lead us into the next question I have for you, but I love that he said that the culture must value training at the highest level. And I'm so glad he said that. It was wonderful to hear that. And you mentioned it before. I'm in the transition phase. I'm transitioning out of our department into another department starting Monday, and we're building a department from the ground up. And I have to start wondering, what does that standard look like? What does that culture look like? How do we develop that? And part of that culture like this is training.
100%.
And I think that I don't know what people know about me or think about me, but I think that what they at
They
least
know
should
you're a
know,
male nurse that makes soap
that's part of it. That's definitely part of it. And I'm very proud of both. I'm very
and
proud of both.
beer. I'll give him the beer thing
listen,
also.
And I make darn good soap. Let's start there. And I make darn good
Lavender,
beer.
lavender
Okay?
soap.
All right. Okay. And thank you for helping me with all the names for the soaps.
I do.
I have a list of names in
The
my
Halligan
phone.
Bar.
The Halligan Bar. What else do we have? I actually have a list of it. I'll have to look it up in a second. A lot of cool names for soaps. If this whole fire chief thing doesn't work out, I got a really cool opportunity to make soap in the future full time.
Or hair product modeling. I feel like we could definitely do that for a little while.
Let's first of all, let's give credit to where it's due. We have about 3 pounds of pomade in our hair per person right now, so that's why this looks so good. It doesn't happen by accident, ladies and gentlemen. This is all premeditated. All right.
South Florida.
It's South Florida.
100%. You can't go out with your hair looking messed up.
But it goes back to that training thing, that culture that must value training at the highest level. And that's what I was going with. I mean, if nobody knows me at all, they know I like to train. They know that I'm a trainer. And I think about that in context of, in this next evolution, as setting a model, like being a model for that. Okay, I want my people to train. I want our team to train. Well, I got to be training every day too.
Of course.
Whether that's reading an article, going over administrative stuff, or getting out there in my gear and dragging hose, I've got to be setting that standard the same way I'm asking them to keep the standard.
Of course. I mean, if it stays stagnant long enough, it's going to sit there and wither away and die. So the constant education, especially from the teacher, has got to be there, or the students are going to suffer. And then the culture suffers after that.
And when we talk about constant education, it's so wonderful. And Keith Rhodes mentioned this a couple times before in some of his editorial statements, that there's so many opportunities out there now to get training everywhere. I mean, what did he say? There's like multiple conferences per week around the country.
It was a crazy number, 45 or something.
It's amazing.
It was amazing.
But I guess the point is there's something out there all the time, and there's no shortage of that. And you add in social media, YouTube, the different channels, all the groups that are establishing themselves doing some sort of training somewhere. Man, it's ripe for the taking.
I think that there was something neat that he mentioned too, like getting more so into the social media aspect. Is just obviously the Instagram videos and the clips are huge, but those mental reps that you're getting by watching someone else do that, or going over like an evolution or training minutes or even a medical protocol. I know you're the EMS guy, so I'm gonna sit there and say that. It's great, but coming out to a conference like this that offers a hands-on and are actually getting to have an interaction with the instructor and talking, I think is where you really get down to the bread and butter on how to do something and really retain some of the information that you're getting. And that's what's so awesome about going out and training, either training with your crews or finding a conference that's somewhat local and really, stretching hose and doing these things and getting into the tactics. But yeah, I mean, there isn't a shortage of fire or conferences that you could possibly go to. You can't say the information's not there or there isn't a class for me to take anymore.
100%. So last night you were at the Fool's Bash, and you did the opening. What am I looking for?
We brought the pipes and drums in, and we did the toast.
The toast. You did the toast. Okay, so walk me through that, because you have this certain eloquence when you're speaking. I think I'm a decent public speaker, but when you get up there, I'm like, man, I gotta take some notes. This guy's good.
Well, I feel the exact same way about you. So I mean, it goes both ways. Well, the Fool's Toast is actually really neat. Last night's party was hosted by the Indy Metro Fools in Indianapolis. I don't remember the name of the establishment that we were at, but anyway, we brought the pipes and drums in. And it's always, been a Fool's tradition. We sit there and they usually pass a can around and we sit there and we give a toast. Little history on the toast. Years ago, the toast was written a long time ago down in Miami. And then after that, Bill Manning from Kissimmee Fire Department passed away. And I was rooming with EJ Mascaro from Charleston at the time. And EJ had heard the toast. He was like, hey, dude, you need to give that toast. And he ended up giving it to, I think, at a TGIF Fridays. And Bart and Simpson was there, Walt Lewis, and some of the founding fools were there. And they heard that and they were like, we don't have a toast. We'd love to use that. And then it's been a hit ever since.
That's cool.
unfortunately, I had to give that toast to DJ's funeral too, which it's kind of just paying respects to everybody at the end of the day. But it's beautiful to sit there and have the pipes and drums perform, give the toast, and then they go right back into Amazing Grace or something like that. It really that heartbeat of the fire service just felt wherever you're at. So it's a really, really neat experience.
I didn't know the history behind that. I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I'm glad we're exploring kind of where that came from, because part of this is our history, it's our traditions, but it's always great to kind of find out where they came from, because if we're not passing that information on, sometimes those things get lost. Like,
100%.
where did that come from? I don't know. Who's that guy that started? I don't know. And that's the reason, for example, I had a couple of the founding fools on the podcast a few months ago, because I found myself not knowing that history. And we all love the fools. My
Yeah, how
God.
could you not?
Yeah, you have to. And I'm thinking to myself, if I, with this platform and writing articles and teaching here, don't know that, well, what kind of disservice am I doing? I need to be the one continuing to spread where this came from, the people that started this, and put everything into building what is an amazing organization today with training and fundraising, all that jazz. So that's why I had them on, to really just highlight what they were doing and put them to make sure people don't forget.
Yeah, exactly.
And so in terms of like the fool stuff, well, let's talk about that first thing, because for at least for me, I know we're spoiled in South Florida. We have a
100%.
very strong Fools presence. They're always active. Just a strong group of cats that are doing training all the time, getting people to join them, and all that jazz. So, what's been your experience lately with the Fools? Like, walk me through that.
It's been amazing. I mean, we had kind of been stagnant for a little bit. The thing to look at when you see any organization that's booming and just doing awesome and amazing, let's go with FDIC. There's a person who's pouring his heart and soul into it. Chief Rhodes is doing that right now, and that's why this is blossoming, and he's really taken over Chief Halton's spot. So we had Mickey Tefexis that ended up taking over the Fools and went right back into it. And the majority, like the centering stuff, is big on training and taking care of our own and then the community. So obviously with the training aspect, the live fire trainings, the hot classes we're doing, but then as well as the community outreach stuff, sitting there and working with different charitable organizations where we could sit there and, make a donation or volunteer and do those things. So it's almost like an extra step outside of the firehouse, but still with that same firehouse mentality. And it's still a lot of like-minded guys, the 1%, so to speak, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And it's a very positive message and a great outlet for the guys to go to. And the girls, it's just awesome.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do is either attend or assistant teaching an event from the Fools. You're right. You got the energy, you got the people that are into the job, and having that surround you is wonderful. And they're also not the ones that are afraid to have the tough conversations with you. Also, they're your friends or your people you work with, but they're the ones that are here for the right reasons, the culture. But they know when things need to be said. They know when. For example, if I'm teaching a class and at the end of the day, hey, I resonated with this, but you know what? I think you missed the mark on this. Cool. Thank you for that. I need that as an instructor, as a leader. I need that feedback. So again, we could talk about the Fools all day. I'm glad that, in Florida, we have the ones that are basically founded the Fools. You mentioned a bunch of their names. I really am proud of them cats. So I want to talk also about the FDIC and the training here. So obviously we're at FDIC. I've only here since Tuesday this week, and I think I'm leaving on Friday or later on Friday. But what's been some of your experiences thus far this week at the conference?
Number one, the camaraderie. It seems like everyone's spirits were real high. I know it was kind of a hit after COVID happened, the whole virtual thing and everything else. But it seems like everybody's ramping back up and everybody getting to the old swing of things. The parties are back. The education's back. We do not have a lack of abundance of speakers. I feel like the classes are on point. There's something for everybody at this conference, whether you want to hit EMS. Not that Chief Shaw talks about EMS all the time.
And I'm proud I do. I'm an absolute EMS junkie. Proud of it.
He does both. But anyway, there's something for everybody here, and it truly is amazing seeing all the vendors and everybody come out. And so far, obviously, I got to saw Chief Shaw's talk on leadership, which was amazing. Hiddle with Entry was always a hit. We had Champ talking yesterday. I mean, the cool thing, all right, so I'm really into punk rock and hardcore music, but the cool thing about the fire service and punk rock music is that you get to meet your heroes, right? You like a really ritzy band like Queen, you're never gonna get 10 feet from these people. But the fire service and punk rock, you go to a local show with a good punk rock band, you can go out to the show, you can have beers with them, you can hang out with them, you can talk their ear off. the same thing happens in the fire service. These people's books that you write or you buy, the YouTube videos that you watch, the pages that you follow, the merch that you wear, you can actually sit down and have a conversation and go to dinner with these people when you attend an event like that. And that's like nothing ever in the world. You're a bottom guy at a big Fortune 500 company. You're not hanging out with the boss ever. And you get to do that. But that also speaks to a lot what they were talking about in this speech with, the regular guys hanging out with those chief officers and having that bond, which I think Chief hit in his keynote.
No, and that concept is absolutely critical.
Mhm.
The ones that are like, whether me, for example, am I staying in my office all the time, or am I getting out there, feeling the pulse of the crews, whether I'm training with them, eating lunch with them, having a cup of coffee with them, just trying to get my finger on the pulse and whatnot. And a lot of that is through training.
Of course.
I love to still be able to get out there and work with the training bureau, cut up overhead doors with saws or whatever it is. I'm happy that I still get to be able to do that. And I try to take every advantage of that.
Yeah.
I was talking to my former supervisor, who's out there right now, Chantel Botting. She's out there watching us right now. Hey, Chief. But we were talking about the ability to go to training more. And a lot of times we have to do things on the administrative level we don't want to do that keep us away from that, wanting to go out there and just get dirty and just get grimy and gritty and sweat with our brothers and sisters. But sometimes when we get there, so when we do have those opportunities, we just savor it and we just love it.
I feel like that starts happening even on the company level when you get taken away like the fun stuff. When you sit there and you're a fireman, right? You're riding back step and you roll up to an extrication or a fire. You're pulling that hose. You're sitting there. You're picking those tools up. You're going to work. Then all of a sudden you take a test. And let's say you're a driver. Now all of a sudden you're assisting the fireman. And now you're taking the tools out and handing them to the fireman and watching him do all those things. And then when you take that next step, you get over to the right seat and you're in that company officer level. Now you're sitting there watching the entire thing happen and kind of overlooking. And all you want to do is grab those tools and grab the person and sit there and act because we've been born and bred to do those things.
Oh, yeah.
And those administrative rules just take all the fun away from everything.
Well, easy. Admin's not bad. Just full disclaimer, admin's not that bad. Admin's not that bad. We need administrators.
We talked about that. We need those vigilantes to infiltrate the administration.
Yeah, exactly.
In order for policy change and stuff like that. I'm just having too fun being that cowboy in the back seat right now.
I know. Yeah, I've learned to enjoy the admin spot, but still, I think I have one of the best gigs where I still get to get out there as much as I can. So it's a good balance. But one of the things you were talking about is the conversations that you have with the instructors here, and as one of those instructors, it's bittersweet because after we get done talking or presenting, you stir the motivation. People they're up, they're moving, we're talking, we're exchanging information, and you want to keep that going. But a lot of us here only have like an hour and 45 minutes. And at the end, you're like, oh, but I don't want to stop. So it's wonderful to keep connecting with those people afterwards. And just, most people probably know. Just make sure I'm intentional about repeating this. As instructors, whether it's Fools events, whether it's here, especially here, our goal as instructors at FDIC is not just to come in and give a speech and leave and go home. We want the interaction. We crave the interaction. We crave the feedback, the follow-up. Hell, the last time I was teaching last year, I think I connected with over 20 people via email, and some of them we still connect with today. And this time around, even after my class yesterday, I got a couple communications back and forth. We want that. I mean, we want that.
The constant communication and networking, but with that payoff and everything like that, it's reciprocal. It works both ways because maybe you work in an area that I could learn something from, and I'm going to have a weird call that's kind of like out of our stuff. And that communication from that email that you sent is going to let that link happen. And I can sit there and I can ask you questions. And it's said all the time. And even like the most mundane training circumstances is every time that we teach a class or anything like that happens, we're learning something from the students as well.
100%. Absolutely.
And just because we might be helping out with this discipline doesn't mean that they're not, the subject matter, the SMA, it's something else, or the SME, it's something else.
No, and you mentioned that, and one thing that comes from
there's
that.
Jerry Tracy. I wonder if he's coming in.
I don't know what he's doing. What is he? Is he
He's walking around.
He's walking around. He's a popular guy. But it's one of those things where also there's a humility in that too. In other words, yes, can a 30-year guy learn from 1-year guy? Absolutely. Based on what they've experienced already, maybe in their career or something they just throw out there. I was talking about that in the class yesterday, where you may be teaching one day and then you watch another, let's say a fledgling teacher or instructor, and they'll do something or say something. You're like, oh, wow, that's good.
Makes sense.
Oh, I'm going to use that next day. I'm going to incorporate that right into what I do. But the trick is one of two things. One, I always, and we mentioned this yesterday, giving credit where credit's due. no matter who it is. I think that we still struggle with that in the fire service about making sure that if we've got this knowledge, making sure we acknowledge those people that passed it on to us.
Real quick, I'm going to make a little ad lib right here, and I'd like you to tell the story of the radiation symbol.
You want me to tell the story?
I would love it, because you were talking about people
Okay.
passing on knowledge.
Okay.
And then we can get into
The
what are your
quality
3
that
C's?
counts.
What are the 3 C's of that? Like the credibility.
Carefully. You know what? Let's do that.
This is a good.
So
This is
you
a
wanna
good
hear
talk
this
about
one?
taking
Okay.
information from people.
So let's see. Everybody now is listening to this. Think about what the radiation symbol looks like. Okay. Think about what the radiation, the trifoil symbol you see on nuclear sites and blah blah blah. So radiation symbol, right? I usually, when we do the class, I'll show the symbol and say, "What's this?" And people will go, "Oh, that's the radiation symbol." Oh, okay. Where did it come from? And everybody goes, "I don't know." And I go, "You know where it came from?" Well, what I was taught is that is the propeller blade of the Enola Gay, the bomber that dropped the bomb during the war. And most people go, "Oh my gosh, wow, that's incredible! That's amazing! That's awesome!" And I said the same thing when I first heard that. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's such an amazing piece of information! It's so amazing! I'm going to start teaching that everywhere I go." And so for almost 10 years, almost a decade, I would go and tell people that story. That here's the radiation symbol. Where'd it come from? Oh, that's the propeller blade of the Enola Gay. And people will go, "Wow, that's so cool!" And I'm like, "I know, right? I know." And they look at me like I'm some sort of guru. One day, I'm over at Firehouse 53 in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm with a lieutenant named Buzz Johnson. That's his name. I'm at the ARF station, and the guy's name is Buzz Johnson, one of the at the time, one of our senior multi-veteran lieutenants. And I'm telling this story to Buzz. I'm like, "Buzz, here's the radiation symbol." He's like, "Yeah, I know." I go, "Do you know where it came from?" And he goes, "No." I go, "That's the propeller blade of the Enola Gay." And he goes, "No, it's not." And I go, "Well, what do you mean?" I go, "Yeah, it is." "No, it's not." I go, "Yeah, it is." And now I'm in a situation where he is challenging me, my knowledge base, and he's challenging my mentor who told me that. Now I'm offended. Now I'm offended. So I'm like, "Listen, guy, it is. That's the fact. That's the truth, right?" And he goes, "Son, I want you to turn around." I turn around at Station 53, and inside the office of 53 is a whole collage of aircraft dating back 100 years, including a picture of the Enola Gay. And he goes, "Son, I want you to count the propeller blades on the Enola Gay's prop right there." I'm like, "Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I looked at the radiation symbol. 1, 2, 3. I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. And one can argue that as it's spinning, it may look like it's 3, but it still had me going through my records and saying, okay, let me just double check my information. When I started double checking my info from the information that my mentor gave me, I could find zero to corroborate that story. Nothing. So essentially, what I've been doing over the past almost 10 years is lying to people, lying to hundreds of classes at a time on that suspected knowledge that my mentor gave me. So to your point, Maddie, I cover that because I always tell our people, our instructors, with the words that are coming out of our mouth, because they have weight to them, is to carefully curate your content. Carefully curate your content.
3 C's.
Yeah. If you're going to say something to somebody, make sure that whatever's coming out of your mouth is truthful as you know it to be. And if you don't know, you don't know. It's okay. And if it's something that's your opinion, tell them it's your opinion. But watch what you say, because our words as instructors especially, have so much weight. And I would challenge people listening to this to think about this for a second. When you've been on a call, fire, medical, whatever, and you're in that situation where there's a lot of people watching you, and you have to tell somebody something, what you say is typically gospel. Because you're the fire department, you're a fire rescue person, you're a member of the first response community that has a lot of weight in what's coming out of our mouths. And people know that we tell the truth. So if we tell the truth, people expect that. We got to follow it up. Our actions have to match our words. But if you give them bull crap, and that's what they remember, we're doing a disservice. So I'm glad you asked me to bring
I was actually going to go a different route with that. I was going to say, this is for those listeners that meet Chief Shaw. Please act like you're a subject matter expert and tell him something completely off the wall so that he uses it in a speech and I can call him on it. Is the reason that I brought that up. We got serious. So yeah,
I took it down the serious route. I apologize. And one thing, let me ask you this. Let's talk about training for a second.
Yes.
I was watching you teach at the Fort Lauderdale Fire Expo last year. And I get to watch a lot of instructors, and I'm not trying to blow your skirt up here, Maddie, but as I'm watching you and the way you were teaching, the intensity, the focus, what makes a good instructor? In other words, when you're focused on your crew, your team, whatever you're teaching, what works for you?
I think beginning, if we're going to do everything like we say, like giving credit where credit's due, I started attending any kind of like continuing education class or fire conference right off the rip when I got through my probationary year, and then after that, I started going to conferences. Um, I knew what kind of fireman and instructor I wanted to be like, right? Because I had such charismatic and passionate people that I was around. I mean, essentially, that's why I left the department where I was at, and I came to Fort Lauderdale, working with Chief Danny Moran, Chief Mike Salzano, Chief Shaw, attending classes with them, learning from them. I wanted to emulate that cowboy mentality fireman, and I was kind of lacking that in the department I was, and it wasn't from the lack of friendship or the lack of camaraderie that I had at that department. In my heart, I just knew I wanted something different. So when I got to Fort Lauderdale and I got to cut my teeth in the fire service, so to speak, with those guys that were tough as nails instructors and watching how they worked and how they could still, it wasn't like when someone's teaching, like I was getting a talk to or I was being told how to do something. It was kind of like one of my friends kind of guiding me along and making me better at what we were trying to eventually get to. And I think that kind of teaching style, not beating someone into the ground to the point where they can't retain anything, is really just the key. Because we've all been there. We've all been that 1-year guy that, like you said, especially now, doesn't know how to start a saw, doesn't know how to do something. And if you bring yourself down to that level and you make that an opportunity for you to make that legacy with that student, I feel like that's the hit. That's the key. And that pays it forward, because there's nothing more beautiful, especially than being in a recruit class training and then later down the line watching someone make a push or pull a inch 3/4 and get and make it knock and come out smiling. Yeah, dude, like I did it. And because he had those reps in him, because you were there and you led him the entire way to the point where he's actually able to do that right now. And I think just getting down to a student's level and just remembering where you were at is just like it. And like finding the joy in that. We talked about this the other night. I was sitting there and, actually I was talking to Eric Henges about this. He was like, yeah, man, my guy's really in love with the fire service. He had a guy that's been here, like, it's a young dude. And just watching that smile when he's talking about getting to help out with the class and, maybe they're going to let me help out next year. I'm going to volunteer. I want to help out. I remember when I felt like that, when I was itching to get into instructing and I was itching to get into teaching. And I just like, everything was fire. Everything was the fire service. I wanted every bumper sticker, every keychain. I wanted a stupid license plate. I wanted all of it. And I remember that feeling. And it's just so cool to see people that are still into the job and having that love. If we can harness that and then instruct, I think that's what we need.
I'm glad I asked you that question. I'm glad that you started with saying that when you first started getting into this, you attended.
Yes.
You attended conferences. You put the reps in. You did the work. You didn't just jump on as a training cadre instructor. You did the work. And I think that that's a healthy reminder that we all have to start somewhere, but we have to do it the right way. We have to earn our keep, get the reps in, attend as many classes as possible. And then eventually when you got the comfort level, when you've basically got that, I guess when you're at the point where maybe you're not an expert, but you're in it enough, you've done it enough, you've got the training enough, you've established yourself as someone who at least is at that level where now you can pass on the knowledge. And where I'm going with this is I'm thinking of this. I was thinking about Bill Guston, getting the instructor of the year.
The old man.
The old guy. Yeah, Bill. And, I think a lot of people know Bill Guston. It's interesting. Depending on, we go here, a lot of people know Bill Guston. We know him because we work next to him.
Yeah.
So we just have a different relationship.
Miami-Dade County.
He's Bill. Hey, Cap. And we have a good relationship. My brother in Miami-Dade worked with him for a while. Has some really cool stories about him, by the way. And he's helped me a lot with a lot of the things I've been initially training in, like rotary saws, overhead door force function, those kind of things. And he gave me a lot. But I was thinking, as I was watching him today, getting that award, what makes that? What builds that person who gets to be the instructor, lifetime instructor of the year?
The man had a statue while he was still constructed of him while he was still on the job. He's just an awesome guy. That doesn't happen. I can't tell this whole story, but I will tell this aspect of it, or just one small part of it. When I did my EMT rides, I did my EMT first ride at Station 2, Miami-Dade County, or Metro-Dade County at the time. And I remember sitting there with a box of donuts, as a shivering kid. And like I said, I can't tell the whole story. But anyway, Captain Guston had a pillow at the time that was very, very dirty. And he gave that pillow to me that day and threw it at my chest and said, "You're going to be holding on to this today." But it was gross. But he was a character, and he's that same thing. And everything that comes out of Captain Guston's mouth is teachable. And he is more ate up with the job than probably anyone I've ever met in my life. And yeah, I don't at that point where Cap's at, like I think that's almost something you're born with, because it's just the knowledge base, the communication, and everything is just so perfect. He's just a fireman at the end of the day, and it's really easy and makes you want to learn from someone like that.
We were talking yesterday about the different traits that we want to see in our instructors, and then vis-a-vis our leaders. And one of those ones that always comes up when I think about him is that humility concept. And I think we all know that if you see Captain Gusson attending a class, you're going to find him in the front of the class with his little red notebook, taking notes as if he was a student on day one.
The glasses on.
Yep. And that he's the modeling he does between things like that and some of the things that we've known him for training opportunities, whether we're teaching the fools or whatever, the modeling always kind of rings true to me. In other words, he's not just saying it, he's practicing it in real time. I remember calling him a while ago when, after he had helped me out with a lot of the forcible entry stuff, and kind of got me to where I was comfortable. I called him one day. I'm like, hey Cap, I'm doing a class on chopping up overhead doors with a rotary saw. Are you available to come help me? He's like, and he got mad at me. He's like, Steve, I don't know why you're calling me. You know this stuff. You've got this. Why are you calling me? You've got this. And at first I was like, oh my God, I upset him. I'm sorry. But then I'm realizing, man, yeah, you set me up for success. I do got this. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do good. So I remember that. But there was no hubris there. There was no like, I need to be there because I'm the guy. No. He's like, you got this. I'm moving on to other things.
You have to understand also, me and you talked about this, that payoff. Sitting there and watching your so-called ducklings sit there and, sit there and cross the pond for the first time, getting away from all the fish and all that and making it over to the other side that's that payoff.
Feeling.
That's the best feeling in the world.
It's a phenomenal feeling, man. And I'm glad you said that, because I think that that's we have to talk about that. We have to talk about making sure, and this goes into another conversation we're probably not going to have enough time to cover, but like succession planning. Who's taking our spots? How are we building this next generation of firefighters that are going to take our spots? I mean, everybody I talked to at the conference lately seems to be going the same thing we're going through. We're doing a big generational shift. Multiple people are retiring. New guys coming in. What are we doing? Intentionally, what are we doing about that?
I think one of the biggest things, and it's very, very interesting. I've been talking about this a lot, trying to put something together, is being the millennial senior man at the station. It's a juggling act, because you've got older, kids that were raised by boom, or not even so much, but like the older generation, 55, 60 years old, sitting in officer seats on the right-hand side. And then you've got a 21-year-old kid. By all accounts, they do not speak the same language. There's little they have in common. The little one really annoys the older guy. There's a lot of complaining, right? So being the middleman but still a millennial, it's kind of like my Spanish. I'm not 100% bilingual, but I kind of speak it, and I can definitely speak English, right? So trying to sit there and make that work is now my job. And what's crazy is trying to find little things that they can help each other out with. This guy needs to learn, right? And this guy wants to learn. How do I get him to want to learn, right? There's got to be a give and take. Well, I guarantee you that senior officer hates doing target solutions. Everybody hates target solutions and hates doing any kind of computer work, sending emails, any kind of anything. He's always screwing the computer up. He's locking himself out of stuff. Now, this young kid is a genius on a computer. This guy's fighting and shaking the keyboard. This kid built his first computer at 6 years old, right? So that's a common ground. And that's what's really, really neat about my spot right now, is I can find those and I can make friendships and I can start in the teaching grounds. The common grounds is what makes everything work. We also got to stop hating the fact that you're young. This last generation said the same thing about me. They're like, these guys don't know anything, right? I'm sorry I wasn't, taking away a carburetor with my father, right? Like, there's a lot of things that I don't know how to do. I wasn't raised on a farm and all these things. I needed to be taught. They were a little more apt to teach like someone like me, but we need to do the exact same thing with this younger generation, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to be riding the trucks with us. It's going to take a little extra time, maybe a little different teaching method, but they're still going to get it.
No, and I want to start wrapping this up, but one of the things you just said prior to this conversation was the idea of legacy. And I think, and we talked about this in class yesterday, that some of our folk get upset that these new generations are coming on with everything you said they lacked, But conversely, isn't that where the opportunity is? Isn't that where the gift is?
Where like an all-star.
Oh my gosh, if we always preach and talk about what's your legacy going to be. Well, if I got a new guy at the station, regardless of how old they are, where they come from, I got a new guy who doesn't know something, whatever that is. Forget the job stuff. Let's say they don't know how to cook, make coffee, fold clothes, whatever. If you, as the instructor, are gonna, or even just as a human being, are gonna teach them something that they're gonna use, that not only is it they're gonna use for the job, but then for the rest of their life, why would you side eye that? Why would you go, oh, this is bullcrap? You're talk about legacy. You're teaching them something that one, they will remember forever. Two, they'll remember you for doing it.
100%.
I mean, I think that I'm not sure how to say this, but maybe it's all the coffee talking to me right now and the excitement that we're talking about this right now. But all these new folk coming in, that's not an obstacle. That's not a challenge. That's a golden gift. That is an opportunity of exponential proportions. And if it's used the right way through training, leadership, you're going to create that legacy. You're going to make a great firefighter and a better human being. I mean, how could you not? How would you side eye that?
So think about this for this conference, FDIC, right? The Fire Department Instructors Conference, right? If what we want to do is teach and we want to instruct, if there's no students, we don't have anything, right? All we have, these young kids coming up, are just our students. We don't get to handpick them. We don't get to do these things, but at the end of the day, they're students. This is how we practice our craft. And this instruction that we're doing them only makes us better at our job. I can't tell you how many times I have a probationary fireman, and we're sitting there and we're going over saws and RPMs and all these things. You know, these are things that I take for granted and I don't go over all the time. But me going over and getting those reps in with these kids is just amazing. It really just preps me back up for my stuff, and that payoff. These life skills. I mean, if anything, you're doing a service to everyone by teaching these kids things that you know. That's our job as humans. Take the fire service out of here. If we know something that I can teach you that's going to make this world better, then that's what we do. And now we're just doing it at the firehouse. And we have to live with these kids, so why not make them proficient and stuff?
We're going to live with them
They're
for
there for
20,
24
years.
hours.
And they're going to be with us for a long time. We're talking
But
20,
to teach kids how to cut onions at work. Cut onions.
Oh my gosh. I'm thinking of so many situations that we can go over and over again. But so as we're I guess we're getting close to somewhat of an hour, but what else do we need to talk about? Like what else is on your mind these days as we kind of wrap up? Well, I was wrap up the week, but we're getting close to the end of FDIC, somewhat in the middle. We've been talking about the leadership. We've been talking about the training aspects. So what else is on your mind these days? What else is we need to discuss?
There's been a lot of I can bring this up now. I guess there's been a lot of like talk about, and I hate hearing this, and I feel like it comes out every once in a while. I don't know why it's just like the moral comes down, but the brotherhood talk, people saying that the brotherhood and the sisterhood is just dead in the fire service, and it's a really hard thing for me personally to hear. But not to get so much into that, but like some ways that like if you're struggling with that kind of thing, to understand that the brotherhood, the sisterhood, the fire service isn't just narrowed down to your department and these things. That's why these conferences are so amazing. The networking, the brotherhood you can find in these places, best friends that don't work anywhere near your department, but still, you know, with the same ideas and the same mindsets and the same loves and passions and joys. You can't tell me another job ever where I can be 5,000 miles away from my house, have a water main break inside or right next to it, have my entire house flooded out. And by the time I'm able to make it back there, there's 15 people there mitigating and fixing that problem. Or if if I blow a tire in Alaska, that I don't have a guy like Ben Flegel that's going to come and call 15 people to make that happen. Our network is so big. And when things go wrong, and I can speak from personal experience, that everyone is running to your side. And that is what's so amazing about this. And I just want everyone to keep that in the back of their minds. As tough as things are going on and whatever's going on inside your firehouse and stuff like that, keep the morale up. Because it is, you never want to find out how real the brotherhood is. I'll just leave it at that. So
yeah, I got you 100%. Well, you know what? I'm glad we got the chance to talk, man. There's a lot of things going on right now at the conference. I'm going to a class next. I love that coming here and being the instructor one day and then the student the next day. You know, that's important for us to keep that balance because we're always going to be students. And then of course the after event evenings, the dinners, the coffees, the beers, just the conversations that have kind of wrap up at the end of the day, all that jazz. The last thing I was thinking of is in terms of, I want to go back to legacy one more time. I think, let me think of who it was. I want to say it was Rusty Ricker I was talking to.
New England Pools.
And I want to say I got to double check my notes in a second, but one of the questions I always ask when I'm doing this normal podcast is, does anything concern you in the fire service? Are there any things that keep you up at night? And the response I got was tremendous. The response is no, I'm not worried, because that he saw the value, he sees the value, the tremendous opportunities that are coming in with the new generations. And as long as we do our jobs, everything's going to be fine. And I'm like, damn, that right there says a lot. They're coming in, we do our jobs, we're going to be just fine. It was the most positive response to that question that I've gotten, and it resonates with me. And I look around and I feel the vibes. I get the learning, the talking, the discussions. It's good feeling.
Big time.
It's a good feeling. So anyway, I guess we're almost done here. But hey, Chief Botting, is there anything else we need to talk about?
Well, thank you.
The hair, or just in general? Okay, just making sure. Got it. Okay, just want to make sure. All right. Well, we're coming close to, I guess, 1 o'clock, and I know I want to go over to get to my next class soon. But Maddie, thanks for being on, man. This is fun.
Chief, good luck at Jupiter.
Oh, thank you. I start Monday, so
it's horrible.
Thank you. Yeah, I got my work cut out for me.
Yes, sir.
All right. So as we wrap this up, once again, thanks for everybody for being here at FDIC 2024. Thanks for listening to this podcast, the Perspectives on Leadership podcast. Thank you for Firehouse Subs for giving us this little space to do this gig in. Much appreciated. And other than that, we're going to call it a day. So thank you all.
Thank you, guys.